I'm just gonna I'm just gonna like some of these and not reply to all of them.
Your Sonic OC is getting a whole bunch of traction.
A lot of people are like, "Oh my gosh, this is bad but good," and I'm like, "No."
I'm telling you, Sonic OCs are gonna be in vogue now. It's gonna have been cool to have made Sonic OCs. Ironic detachment is looping back to sincerity.
Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Okay, okay. I'm just gonna close this and I'll look at the rest later. Hi, I'm here. I'm also gonna like put my phone away from me so the buzzing doesn't get picked up on.
Oh yeah, no, yep.
Nope, we're good.
All right. Then, without further ado, welcome back to Speech Bubbles, a webcomic podcast where we talk about those damn things. My name is Brent, and I do the webcomic Paradise.
You just keep shortening it every time. My name is Amber. I do the webcomic Backlash.
And my name's Jeff, and I do the webcomic Firearm with the Y.
With a Y, and this week we're talking about supporting casts. Which,
finishing the triangle.
Yeah, I think originally we wanted to kind of do this back after like the Antagonist episode, but we were like, we just did like 2 episodes talking about characters and character tropes and things we like, and we wanted to talk about maybe more process stuff, so we kind of like left it off for a bit, but now we're circling back to the third part of that protagonist, antagonist, supporting cast like triangle. Your characters who are not your main character, but are not your big bad character either. I think all of us have a lot of these.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
Oh man.
I'm still getting rid of some.
Yeah, Jeff, you haven't introduced a whole bunch, but I know me and Amber probably have both introduced more than like 15 characters with names.
Oh gosh.
Give or take. I'm
Like,
like trying to do
I
the
feel
like-
mental
Yeah.
math.
I'd have to go through and count. There's a lot.
I just know you guys have enough that you have like at least a good like cast going on, and I know there's probably still more to come.
It's
as a
only
result.
the
By-
beginning.
By the end of the next chapter, I think Paradise will have at least like 20 characters
Oh my
introduced
gosh.
with names.
Oh, wow.
Woo!
I love ensemble casts though. I love casts that are just fucking enormous and there's a million characters. Like I love One Piece. A lot of my favorite movies have like ensemble casts with a whole bunch of characters in them.
You can 100% blame my ensemble casts on One Piece. Like,
Yeah.
I just point my finger at that. It's because of that.
Well, if I had to blame anyone, and this is not trying to bring up anything that's happening today, we can blame Sonic for that one. Because, Sega had to make a new character for every new game.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
golly.
Point.
God, see now Bleach. To not get too much into the topic before we actually start answering questions, Bleach does this in a really kind of like a really good way that becomes really shitty after a while, where he just introduces characters in groups of like 8, and it's just
yeah.
after a certain point, it's like there's way too many characters and none of them have done anything. Man, Bleach was like the epitome of the rule of cool.
Oh, boy.
Look at these cool people. Oh man, I hope you didn't want them to do stuff. Ichigo's back. He's back and he's better than ever. He's gonna bleach those hollows.
Oh, lost on me.
You haven't read Bleach either?
No!
Oh, Jeff.
Why would I?
Add to our list of podcasts, we're gonna do a thing where Jeff has to marathon a thing that, like, a bad manga that me and Amber suggest, and then we talk about it.
Oh. Well, if we're doing that, I'm not going to be recommending any comics for a few weeks. All right.
But, yeah, I guess we usually talk about, like, our experiences with the thing. Do you guys want to talk about your experiences with making your supporting casts at all? Or how about this? When you were first going into making your comic, did you, like, have a cast of characters to draw? Like, did you know you were going to make a whole bunch of characters, or were they, like, did you make your comic and then they just kind of kept popping up like daisies?
With mine, I had a lot of like one-off characters for like a million different ideas, like concepts for a bunch of OCs. And then I threw them all in the same story together because I wanted them all to be in the same story together. And that was like, they have since all been like sorted into actual roles, but like a lot of them I was just like, what if this character and this character were in the same story? That's actually usually what happens with at least with Backlash. Like, it was like, okay, but like, what if I put this guy and this girl in the same universe, and then what if this guy from this other story was also there as the bad guy? You know, like, it was like, and so it was like, I guess I kind of always set myself up to have like a big ensemble cast in my comic, but it wasn't like I went about it like I need to have a million supporting characters. It was just, I just really want all of these cool people to like be featured in this story.
I think for me, I didn't really plan to have such a big cast. I mean, Fire Emblem was supposed to be just a quick little thing, right?
Really?
Yeah, it was going to be I think I talked about this before, maybe, but I was only going to have like a quick story with Firearm, with Pyre the cat, and it was just going to be like a practice run for my official big story that I put off. And
it was going to be your tutorial comic?
Yeah, and it wasn't. But originally I had like maybe just a handful of characters in it. There was like the main character, his friends, and the bad guys, and that was it. And I mean, his friends, there were like 2 or 3 of them. I kept it really simple, but then as the story changed, I realized, oh, I need characters for this and that in this area, and then I also started world building. I'm like, oh, a character could fit here, and then kind of just started creating characters for different things. And then when I had characters already, I realized some of them could just fit in the story, much like if you see my cyborg sniper dude 7B, he's in there now because it just fit. He was already from a desert world, and I kind of need some other antagonist in there. Like, hey, Seth, how about you come on in here? How about you come murder some boys for me?
So I can't wait. By the way, just as an aside, Jeff, like, I'm waiting.
We're waiting for
Seth. I'm waiting for Seth.
He will come soon. What about you, Brent?
My experience is a lot closer to Amber's. I spent like 3 or 4 years like RPing on a website called Tagaki, and when I got to the point where I wasn't super RPing on there anymore, and I knew I wanted to make a webcomic, I was just left with a whole mess of characters. I'm actually like constantly in the process of being like, oh, I should go back and look at the characters I made for that group, and realize I made fucking like 12 to 15 characters for an RP group that I never did anything with, and they're just all like laying around like fucking toys in the attic. But yeah, so I had like a whole mess of characters. A healthy amount of them were from like One Piece RP groups, and I mushed them together and rearranged it, and Pam was my favorite, so she got to be the main character. And yeah, that's kind of how it was. There's not a lot of characters from Paradise that weren't, well, at least that have shown up so far. A lot of the characters who show up in late game Paradise are maybe like newer ones who were made specifically for Paradise. But like I said, like I've always been in like One Piece is one of my favorite series. My like favorite movies, like Dogma and Snatch, both have like huge ensemble casts where like even the main character is like not like, especially in Snatch, the main character is not really anything. It's like these weaving plot threads of all these different characters having all their different stories like all around the same thing. I don't know. I've always really liked ensemble casts, and Paradise, as far as like my little like story ideas go, definitely has the biggest one. But I've learned since writing this, but that also just means that Paradise probably introduces new characters at a rate of like 1 to 3 per chapter.
And you like have to say, if you have a lot of characters, you like, as the writer, you want to introduce them as quickly as you can, even if it's just for a split second, because you don't want to do like stuff like how freaking Kubo did in Bleach, or it's like, oh well, now there's this new group of characters at the very end, I hope you start to care about them. It's like, no, I'm not going to, because I haven't been with them for a long time. Sorry, Kubo.
Yeah, if you do like an ensemble cast, it's a lot easier to like throw characters in for like 2 to 5 pages every once in a while until you can get to their major chunks than it is to like suddenly introduce characters like in the 11th hour. But I mean, that's in regards to like really big casts, but we're also just talking about like supporting characters in general. Anybody like I doubt your cast, if you, listener, I doubt your cast is just going to be like one hero and one villain. You're probably going to have some other peeps in there.
At least a few.
At least a few. And our first question kind of ties into what we were just talking about from @GayAssKimchi. How many supporting characters is enough supporting characters? Is it bigger than 100 plus or 1,000 plus? And the answer is, how many can you handle?
How many can you juggle? Because I was literally, I just now like typed into Google, how many named characters are there in One Piece?
It's like 600.
There's so many. Okay, so like, and that works for Oda. Like, he makes it work. But then I've also like read comics and seen movies and TV shows where it's like there is only like maybe 3 or 4 characters in the whole story. You know, so it's like it depends on what is happening in your story and like how many supporting characters you need in your plot.
Yeah.
You know, like, because supporting characters are there to support the story, so they're there to support your like the main characters and like the plot and stuff. They're there to hold it up and like help it along. So as many as you need, really.
Yeah, as many as you can handle. I've said this a couple times probably on social media. Paradise's like final cast, like the final amount of characters with names in my webcomic is going to be close to 40. And I've definitely like consolidated that number down a little bit, like figuring which character, like how many times was I just introducing a certain amount of characters because I just wanted that many characters, or whether or not I could like consolidate the roles of characters, or take certain one-off characters and kind of combine what they ended up being into a character that I introduced later, so that character was around for longer. Is like math problems, kind of.
Yeah, math for writers and comic artists.
Or word problems, I guess. But it's like shit, dude. If you can handle like 100 plus characters and make it work and make it a cohesive story, by all means, like, go for it. Like, the number of characters, and you know, some people are gonna say like shit's ridiculous, but like if you can pull it off in a story, like no one's gonna care about that. Except, you know, it might be hard for, depending on like similarities between character designs and stuff. I know like a lot of people's criticisms of like Game of Thrones is like, how many scruffy white dudes are we gonna have to remember? Yes, the answer's a lot. The answer's like a metric fuck ton of scruffy white dudes.
Also, I think maybe if you have a longer story, you can kind of get away with more characters. Maybe just because you have more time to flesh them out.
Oh yeah, no. If your story's a 50-page one-shot and you have 100 named characters, that's maybe a bit ridiculous.
Yeah.
I guess, yeah. Consider the cast size in regards to the story. Like a lot of my stories that are gonna be like maybe half or like less the length of Paradise also maybe only have like 10 to 15 named characters, which is still like a pretty good amount compared to like maybe some movies and stuff, but like is not 40. I'm not trying to flesh out 40 characters in like a 10 chapter story.
Well, and also to remember that like you don't have to flesh out every single one of your supporting cast members.
This is true.
Like they don't always have to be like a recurring character or like something that like they bring a lot of impact. Like you might just need them for one scene, you know?
Yeah, like the barista in the cafe or something, or
and they might never come back.
On the street.
I think about this especially in regards to like network television. Like I'm thinking about like my character casts like being ridiculous, and there are so many like TV shows where it's like this character was in this one episode and never seen from or like heard from again. Basically, I mean, it's because these shows are like, you know, long as all hell, but I mean it still works on a smaller scale using this one-off character to provide this like basic function. They're here to provide some sort of plot device that, develops
Mhm.
your main character or introduces a crucial plot element or something. Not every character has to have like a 10-chapter backstory and like a full,
Flashback.
yeah.
I think a good example I can think of, and totally not plugging one of my favorite shows or anything like that, totally not. But iZombie, I think, is a good way of handling a bunch of characters that only appear for a little bit, and that's because like mostly almost every episode is like a one episode mystery that has to be solved, and you have your main characters, and then you have your supporting characters, which are usually like either the victims or the culprits or people like the witnesses and things like that.
Yeah, you see this a lot in like crime procedurals and murder mysteries and
Yeah.
stuff because like
Yeah.
Mhm.
it would be fucked up if the same person's associates were getting murdered every week.
Yeah, I think that would be less of like a crime drama and more of like a
Conspiracy.
conspiracy. Yeah. Like.
But it's good to learn from. Like, not every character's got to be,
Mhm.
equally have equal weight. Some characters are
Yeah.
just there to fulfill a certain function.
Yep.
Yeah.
Let's see. So our next question from Octopus with 3 S's. What are things to remember when making side characters? Like, do you go through a sort of checklist to see if they're good enough? Also, kind of related, how do I kill my darlings? Aw. I have many side characters and I love them all equally, but I know some of them just, yeah. Well, let's see. What are things to remember when making side characters?
I'm a
I
bad
don't go
person
through
to
it.
ask for this, yeah.
Yeah, I don't go through a checklist. It's just,
I kind of have a little checklist. The best thing to think about when you're creating any character really is just what are their goals and what are their fears, because
Ooh.
that's usually what drives the character and what kind of helps them understand what's important to them. Because if your character has a goal, then that means they're always going to be driving towards something. If they have a fear, that's something that they're obviously going to try and avoid or go away from. And that's a tip I picked up from D&D, ladies and gents. So something to think about.
One of the next new characters that comes up in Paradise, I needed a role filled, basically. I needed a specific story role filled, and I was struggling to think of like, do I bring back an old character? Like, what character does it need to be? And I've also had like a Nova power that I've been sitting on for a minute, and I was like, I really want to fit this into the comic somehow. And that was what I did. I made like a completely new character for the express purpose of like, I want to have this power in the comic, and now that character has like sort of developed into something else that I'm really excited about. But like a lot of times when I go to make side characters, it's because like, shit, I want to put this cool thing in my comic through the vehicle of a character.
I mean, like, let me think. Right now, out of all the characters that have shown up in Backlash so far, the most like the characters that like can be classified as like side characters the most would be like the undead gang that we met in chapter 3.
As far as like
they're pretty side characters, like supporting cast, like they're not super important, but like they'll probably show up a few more times, but like they're not gonna be like detrimental to the plot or anything, like and like especially with that like there were 5 characters introduced, and like the 2 like the gang leaders are the most important, and so like they're like the 3 minions that showed up, they're like even more of like a secondary character because they're there for flavor and like to like bounce off of like to build that group's dynamic, but like they're not the main characters, so they're gonna be kind of just and I just made them because I was like, well, I need to make this like conflict for them to go do during chapter 3 to introduce like a new main character. Yeah, and I also those were characters that Manfred and Rib were characters I had from like 2012. Like they're pretty old. I've had them for a long time, and I just like revamped them. Although the like Mia and oxen are both new. I like made them for the express purpose of like I need 2 people to be working in this flower shop.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just made them up. I was like, I'll just make them up, and I just doodled some designs. I was like, all right, cool. There they are. Like I don't know a lot about those characters. Like I know kind of their disposition, their general disposition in the world, and like what their job is, but they're not
gonna do like a deep dive into like
like I don't know their deep backstory. I don't know their because I don't feel like I don't need to know that about every single one of my characters.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're just fun flavor,
Yeah.
I don't really go through a tech list. I just kind of make stuff up.
Okay, well, but what about killing your darlings? Like,
now is this question related, you think, to like killing off characters, or like I have too many characters and I need to cut it because the story's getting bloated?
Ooh.
Probably the second one, you think, yeah?
I mean, we could touch on both. I don't know. I am the worst at cutting characters.
Yeah.
I'm really bad at it because I'm just like, but I want them to like even though they didn't do anything for the plot, like just even having them like in the background of a scene, I'm like, there, I established that OC is like lives in this world,
That's
home. Like, yeah, like even if they didn't participate or do anything, I'm like, there they are. You don't have to keep track of them. I just did that for me. So maybe I'm not the best person to ask about that.
I was gonna say, and I'm even like, I even think like for one of my little side stories, I just came up with 2 new characters for it to add to the pile. I think making the current cast somewhere around like 10 or something, because I also typically like introducing characters in pairs. I like having like even odd dynamics in characters. I really like having conversations that characters can immediately play off of each other. I mean, but that leads into me introducing characters usually in like groups or pairs of like, like 2 to 5. So like, the cast like goes up exponentially because like I wanted to have, a trio of characters here to play off of each other. Yeah, but I mean, I've definitely like cut characters out of Paradise and like consolidated, like I said earlier, consolidated their roles into other ones. A couple one-off characters who I like fused into other characters that were more important. That sort of deal.
Didn't you have like a bunch of people that you like had kind of established in the beginning of the comic, and then like didn't you say somewhere that like they're actually not as important as they were initially when I was making this scene?
Yeah, this is true.
But like you're not killing them off; they're just not gonna show up, right?
I mean, if you've read my comic, Malachi, the officer who dodges out of the way of like Pam throwing Yvonne's rulebook into his computer, he does like 2 or 3 more things, and they're all very, very small. But he's not like he got like a whole like 2-page introduction because originally he was like the 5th of like the Pam, Onyx, Otto, Yvonne group, and I just like I couldn't find a good place for him really to be. So I mean, instead his introduction kind of serves as like a different way powers can be, and I mean he's got like a some more scenes eventually in the comic, but as far as like he's a little cog in a big machine.
Yeah, and like so you didn't like totally cut him out though. He's still like gonna be around ish, like, but he's more minor now.
He's just flavor.
And like like that's like kind of more of how I deal with stuff when I'm like, this character isn't actually gonna do a whole lot.
So from what I can take from both of you is that you haven't really ever really truly cut out a whole lot of characters. You've just repurposed them.
Yeah, that's usually what I do, at least. Like I just kind of change them up. I don't know.
I'm bad there's definitely like probably like between like maybe 5 and 7 characters for Paradise that were like either cut out completely because I didn't care for the concept, or they were like merged into other characters. But well, and here's that other thing, because I was talking to you guys about this recently. Webcomics, because you're only updating like 2 page, like, you might only update like 1 to like 3 pages a week. Your audience is going to be spending a lot of times with these characters, regardless of how much screen time or narrative significance they actually have. Like the character that my characters are fighting right now in the most current chapter, Seeger, he's not gonna show. He's just for the characters having somebody to fight in this chapter. Like he's not going to really show up ever again after this. But because he's been around now for like 8 pages or whatever, that's a month. That's a month of screen time that the audience has now spent with this character. And it can make a character feel a lot more significant than they actually are. At least from a writing perspective. And it's like getting yourself to detach from that, like, every character has to be significant mindset because of how much time you end up spending with them as an artist and a writer is, like, weird.
Yeah. I've actually had, like, kind of a funny experience with, like, my audience's expectations of a character versus what they actually are, with Eduardo, actually, because he's kind of introduced as like a schmuck, like
episode 1 anime
thug. Yeah, like he's just gonna get up and whatever, but then he like sticks around and like he's plot relevant and people weren't expecting that, and so he was like getting character development and like being integrated into like it being involved with the main characters. And somebody like a comment I literally got was, I've never seen a side character get so much screen time before. And I'm like, that's your hint that they're not a side character. Like it's just like funny, like the expectation because of how he was introduced and what people were thinking was going to happen. And I don't know.
That's actually another trick that I've been thinking about a lot, is that not every character needs that like full page like giant introduction either. Like Eduardo's introduced in like as like the background as part of Reinhardt's entourage in chapter 1. You didn't get like a like full page spread of like this is Eduardo, like, and that can be like a way to like, especially if you have a really big cast, that can be a way to like really subtly kind of like introduce characters into the flow, so that's like, oh, this character is like important but not like in a way that you expected right off the bat.
Yeah. Yep. I do that a lot. Have you cut a lot of characters, Jeff?
I feel like there was at one point where I cut out a lot of characters, especially a lot more characters that were tied to a particular group in the comic that hasn't been introduced yet. But I end up working them back in after kind of working out how to make it work. But I've had to cut some characters out. I can't say how many, because I've ended up creating a lot of side characters for Fire Emblem alone, because I was trying to build up this world. But now that the story's gotten a bit smaller, we're not going to certain places anymore, some characters just couldn't make it. It would just be too bloated then.
And hey, man, like, you can keep making comics, like, well into your 80s and 90s. Like, if you have the time to dedicate to it, consider spin-offs.
Yeah, that's a thing. That's a thing. Because I definitely have some ideas for spin-offs at some point. But
this is where all the minor characters go to be the main characters.
Yeah.
Spin-offs where minor characters go to be main characters. I have a Paradise spin-off that I'm really excited about, and I think about a lot, but I can't talk about it in any sort of depth because the characters it involve like haven't even shown up yet. So like that's how like fucking far I am of my own mind, basically. It's like I'm thinking for spin-offs of characters that haven't shown up yet in the comic I haven't finished. Don't be like me, kids.
I think the one thing to take away from this is just you gotta learn. You just gotta learn to like let them go and remember that it's not the end, and it's not like you're not going to see them somewhere, and you can always hide them somewhere or repurpose them. Just make sure it's what's best for the story.
Yeah.
All right, on to the next question. All right. Oh, okay. from, I hope I don't butcher this, at T T T T T T T-I-I
TYY.
T-I. Wow, not eyes. They make that sound sometimes, but not like that. Right, okay. Anyway,
Good boy, buddy.
their question is, how much do you give off extra glimpses of supporting casts' life outside of their roles for the plot? Or are the on-screen appearances strictly only for pushing the plot onwards? That may have been badly worded. Sorry. I don't think characters leave their roles even when they are not actively affecting the main plot.
This is something that I think about a lot.
This is yeah.
Because like you like to, because it's everybody likes to see like people doing like mundane stuff, like especially if your comic is like really like fantastic or whatever, like going and seeing like minor characters doing like having like a downbeat, you know, or like being outside of like interacting with the main characters, like how they are or like what they do. Everybody likes that. It's always like such fun flavor. It's like, oh, cute. But in the world of webcomics, like devoting that time to that side character sometimes seems like I'm gonna be like doing this side part of this comic for like 3 weeks, like depending on how many pages you do a week. Like it'll like these couple pages will be so long to devote to this side character just for like a little extra flavor, like, you know.
It's you doing that math, being like, is the time I'm going to spend working on this scene worth? Because I did this while doing the next chapter, and getting all my scenes in order, kind of. I have a couple of scenes that are like obviously really relevant to like the main plot, and I have one scene that I kind of came up with that I just thought it would be really cute and fun to have, and it's for nothing. It's for like it's for
you.
Yeah, it's for fun character building for like some of the minor characters. It doesn't really have anything to go on with the main plot. It's just like a cute character moment, and it's just, I mean, it's gonna stretch the chapter out probably by like 8 to 10 pages. And that's going to stretch my time working on this chapter out by like another month and a half or so. But I decided that time was worth it so that when you look at this work as a whole, these characters have this little moment to like be more, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't think that on-screen appearances only need to be for pushing the plot onwards, because I love when like comics take a breath and like let things breathe a little bit. But also, I have a lot of characters in my comic, and you know, I have my main characters, but I have a lot of supporting characters that are going to be like the scene. Like, there's going to be scenes where it's like this character is the main part of this scene, and they're not the main character. You know, like I'll have like antagonist focused scenes where they're off doing plot stuff, and it almost seems like they're the main character, but you know, it's just so that you see what they're doing. If like this is something that I'm going to be doing to be able to keep doing like the slice of life fun stuff, like the domestic moments, is I'm going to do like mini in between chapter comics. Like I actually have one planned to release soonish, just for like bonus content, bonus flavor. But I don't think that you like spending time with supporting casts outside of their like interactions with the main characters is bad. I think that can really help a narrative.
Yeah. And if anything, it just helps deepen that relationship to those other characters between you and, well, between the reader and them, and sometimes between other characters. And I mean, I think an example I can think of for me is I had one minor character pop up in the middle of chapter 1 that probably not a whole lot of people who read the comic know who he is, but like if you follow my Twitter and Tumblr, you probably see me post doodles of him. My little helmeted dude guy, he just kind of popped up for a joke real quick in there, just for one whole page.
Oh yeah, he did.
Oh,
he chases the tire.
Yeah, that was it. Like, it has no plot relevance. I almost got rid of it, but it's like, no, I think this is a funny joke. I'm just gonna leave it in here, and a lot of people really liked it, and it was a good like little kind of in between break between scenes. And
you know, when he shows back up again, we'll remember him from this little page.
Exactly. It's just like a little glimpse of a character, and I think that's totally fine. Don't really need to add plot relevance to every character. In fact, I think characters are stronger without always having plot relevance, because like those characters aren't going to always revolve around that story. No one's realistically going to always be chasing after the plot unless it's like completely endangering them, like it would for like maybe the main character, and that's why it's important to them. Like characters have lives outside of the main story. They have lives outside of the main characters. And I think it's going to show that.
Here's a sudden thought, though. I think
Mhm.
maybe the smaller ones cast is, the more, like, pushing the plot forward scenes you're going to end up having. Because if you have a cast that's, like, 4 or 5 characters, those characters are going to naturally carry, like, way more, like, weight.
Yeah, when they're just around.
Yeah.
Because you don't have they have that plot significance. Yeah.
I usually think in like big casts, but yeah, like a smaller cast too.
but
That
yeah.
makes sense.
I'm thinking in like terms of like, movies that are like, a 2-hour drama that have like 5 characters or something. Like each of those characters is going to like represent something way more significant with their screen time, as opposed to like if you have like 20 or 30 characters and you can like not like clearly not all of these little like cogs are going to be working towards the plot machine 100% of the time. But it can depend on how like intimate your narrative is meant to be, I guess.
Just comes down to what you want to do with the story.
I mean, I'm definitely going to be like I know that like I like have scenes planned where it's like, yeah, there's not going to be a main character or a main antagonist in this scene. It's just going to be like some minor schmucks doing things together, like having the peanut gallery, just like hanging out because I'm like, it's funny and I want to share this. Like
that's like all my reasons for side characters.
And a lot of times when you end up looking at the narrative as a whole after that, it'll give you like a more to like about the characters. Because they'll feel like more developed people. But it is like whether or not you as an artist / author feel like that is worth your life, energy, and time.
Yeah. That's very important.
All right. From @Mordsec, I have trouble developing designs for a supporting cast. I'm worried they're too generic or overshadow the important characters. Any tips?
See, I have a problem with this because One Piece.
Yeah.
Where every single minor character that has a name looks like they could be the main character of their own anime. And actually, like a lot of the side characters, sorry to continue talking about One Piece, but like a lot of the side characters in One Piece that show up have more like drastic and dramatic designs than the main character. Luffy is the most simple character in that whole comic.
He's just a dude with some shorts and some sandals and like a button-down shirt and a hat.
And the hat is what like is, that's like the iconic straw hat, but like he's so simple. And then every character that shows up is more like ridiculous than the last.
Yeah, they just kind of keep getting more and more ridiculous.
It's kind of funny bringing this up because I actually got a comment not too long ago about the bandits in chapter 1 and how no single one looks boring. They all look like very unique and very just as interesting as like some of the main characters. And I didn't really mean for that to happen. I just didn't want the bandits to all look samey,
Yeah.
And as a result, I'm like, I've kind of done that with a lot of the background characters when I think about it. I mean, some of them probably look a bit generic, but I do like put some effort into it. And I don't think this is the best way to go about it, but I guess just make every character look interesting. But then some characters might get lost in places, kind of like the Luffy situation that like, oh, now the main character is the most simple looking. So I I don't know if I have a clear answer for this. I guess.
I mean, I've had people say that about all of my characters and supporting characters too. Like people being like, I really like that all of your characters look like their own character. Like everyone's really distinct and unique. Like no matter how like little time they've spent on the screen.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, because I think about all of my characters in like terms of like they're their own person with their own life.
Like I don't know if I would call this I don't know if I would call it a negative. I think it could be like, I could see designs clashing because of like whether or not you're trying to like match certain aesthetics or whatever. But I don't think I've ever read a comic where like all the designs were distinct and felt like characters got lost, if that makes sense. Like ones that I can think of that have like big casts and also like a really nice variance in designs are like Paranatural and Never Satisfied. Like Paranatural, especially in that like the hitball scene where you pan out and you see like the whole class and like each one of these kids looks like a distinct character in a way that's really nice. And like like you said, people come to you and be like, I like how all of your characters look distinct and interesting, is because you made them all distinct and interesting. Like I don't think there's really like a net negative to making all of your characters interesting. If you're more interested in them than your main cast, maybe that's something for you to look into in regards to designing your main cast.
Actually, this kind of brings up a point that I think we brought up in the Protagonist episode, in that like sometimes supporting cast can overshadow the protagonist, and the way we I think the way we answered that, if I remember correctly, was the best way to kind of go against that is to just spend more time with that main character, make them interesting, make them a character you want to spend time with. So I guess in this regard, maybe just spend more time with the main character, spend less time with those side characters. That's the reason I like them.
I think that the like worried about making your side characters really generic is probably more of a concern, because when like that's when characters get lost, is when like it's not that they like, even if they don't like, they look like they fit in this universe, but like if they look just like so plain and you have like other characters that look like that too, it'll be like, I don't remember who this is, because they don't have any like defining feature that like I relate with them. Maybe like if you're thinking about like, if you have a supporting character and you're worried that they might be too generic, like give them like one feature that like is outstanding to them that no one else has. Give them a cool scar, give them a cool hat,
or a straw hat,
or a straw hat. Yeah.
I mean, this just hit me now looking at the fucking Sakuna book on my shelf for like the third time on this podcast. I'm gonna mention Sakuna. It got me thinking about ensemble casts and having a main character, maybe not necessarily generic, but I think if your main character isn't like the prophesied hero or like a Yu-Gi-Oh ass main character, I think having a main character that like looks like they fit in with a group. Like I think maybe if you look at your ensemble cast and they all look like they fit together, I think that's fine. If everybody's designed in a way where they all mesh in a good way, I guess. Like, I don't know where I'm going with this thought. I just think like, your main character doesn't have to be like crazy over designed compared to your generic supporting cast, and your supporting cast doesn't have to be crazy over designed compared to like a generic main character.
I have an example for this. And it's kind of interesting because it kind of goes against that trope that you see a lot in anime, but Mob Psycho 100. Yeah, all those characters look like just normal ass characters, right? And they are all very distinct in just how they act, and they actually are all visually very similar because of one style.
Well, until you get to like the
I was gonna say
until you get to the antagonists, in which
looking
they're
like normal people
freaking...
with scars, that's debatable.
well, okay, but I mean, I was talking
like the main cast,
your main
like
cast,
the main
Mob,
Mob
Reagan,
and Reagan and
Brother Mob.
The brother one.
I do not remember his name. I'm sorry, people who like that character. I was just fucking zoned out for that whole arc.
But yeah, that's like an example as opposed to, you know, like when you watch another anime, it's like, I wonder who the main character is. Certainly isn't that one with the bright blue hair.
Yeah, I feel like it's either one or the other. Like the main character is either usually super distinct, or they're super like I'm in the middle of watching Parasite, and the main character is kind of like a plain guy, and but it's like that's one where it's like these supporting characters are clearly like just for, I don't know. I have a lot of half-formed opinions on Parasite right now, but
well, you haven't finished it yet.
yeah,
right?
As far as designs go, it's like it's got a really nice style, but a lot of characters come off as really plain within it.
Mm-hmm. I think a really good example of like main characters that don't necessarily like look like the main characters if you put them in a lineup would probably be like Full Metal Alchemist. Like everyone in Full Metal Alchemist is so distinct. Like the thing that like makes them different is that Ed wears a red coat.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
But even
like,
if you put them in a group shot, like Ed and Al look like they would fit.
Yeah, they look like they fit with all those people, and they don't look like so drastically like different from everyone else that like it's like, oh well, there's the main characters and there's the rest of the supporting cast, I guess. It's like no, everybody looks like they fit in the same universe and they like can interact together. Man, Full Metal Alchemist is so good.
It's kind of like the perfect story, ain't it?
And that's like, look at how many supporting casts that story freaking has. Like all the supporting characters in there. They have like a full range of like recurring supporting cast and then people who like one-offs. They only show up for like 1 second. Also, it's really good at making minor characters come back and be relevant later. Oh, it's so good.
I love Full Metal Alchemist. Homework, go read Full Metal Alchemist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think as far as like, you know, too generic or too, you know, good or too overshadowing of the main character, I think thinking of your characters in terms of how do these characters all work as a group, I think maybe is a good way to approach it.
Yeah.
I'd say so.
Okay, so then our last question from @WaterDrain. This is a problem I go through a lot. How can you not get attached to your side characters while working on the main story? Whenever I try to develop them, I get so attached to a side character, I want to make a whole new comic series about them, then putting the main story on the back burner.
Well. Spin-offs? Kind of brought that up.
you gotta keep your spin-off on the back burner.
Yeah, I don't know, like, I have a lot of, like, side characters that I'm like, I love this side character. I love this minor character. They only show up like a handful of times, and every time they do show up, I get really excited because they're really fun to draw, and I think they're really cool or whatever. But I've never had the feeling where I'm like, I want to make this side character the main character because they're more interesting than my main character. Because like my main characters are very much the main characters because they carry the plot, and everything that I have for this story and world is built around their conflicts and like what they want. And so, like, the side characters are always just, I'm like, yeah, no, I'm going to just really enjoy a few scenes that they're in and, like, what they'll contribute. But, like, at the end of the day, my main characters are the most important part, and I know that they are.
Yeah.
Also, webcomics are really cool because you don't have to stick, I've said this in the Protagonist episode, I think. You don't have to make your character, like, just a normal, boring, relatable blank slate for people to project on. You can make your main character any of the tropes that you're always really attached to, that are always background characters in stories you like. They can be the main character, and there's nothing stopping you from doing that. So, like, there's nothing stopping you from making your main character your favorite thing in the whole world, you know?
If you're if your favorite character is like a specific type of archetype, like you really like this type of comic relief character, or like this kind of like jerk character or something. They're like, yeah, there's literally nothing stopping you from making
you can
that
just make them the main character. Yeah, just make sure you know, like there should be a reason why your main characters that you chose to have the story revolve around them, why they're the main character, you know? I mean, I went through, for Backlash, like, you know, I made
Bloodfoot a really long time ago for a different story, and then I made Alias a really long time ago for a different story, and they're the main characters of Backlash, and I like shoved them in a story together. But like Alias wasn't a main character in my first run of Backlash. He was the like, what is it called? The trope. He was like the mentor.
That makes
he
sense.
wasn't like a main character. He wasn't like another like a secondary main character. He was the mentor, so he wasn't actually going to be in it a whole lot. And then I was like, but I really like this character a lot. And I think he could actually work really well as a main character. And so then I did that, and now I'm like, yep, this is perfect. My favorite kinds of characters right here in the main as the main character. Like, there's nothing stopping you from making that side character your main character, but maybe consider why is my enjoyment of this side character outweighing the like plot importance of having the main characters I chose being the main characters. Guess I had a lot to say about that.
No, I think we kind of brought a little bit of that up in the Protagonist episode, at least in terms of like, why not just make that side character the main character kind of thing. But
like, there's nothing wrong with just enjoying them for the handful of scenes they show up in either. Like, just because you really like them doesn't mean that they need to. It also doesn't like, just because you like them doesn't mean that they could actually like carry a whole story on their own either. Like,
looking at you, Iron Fist.
Oh man.
Ooh.
I can't speak on that.
Did you watch that?
Didn't watch it, and I have no plans on Jeff, have you watched Iron? You might be one of the like 3 people I know who watched Iron Fist.
I have not watched. I've heard many things from different people, but from also what I've heard from you tell me about comics version of Danny Rand, he works better as the comic relief side character.
Okay, well here's actually a different problem I have that I'm going to immediately launch into. This is especially regarding the superheroes and supporting characters. Characters like Iron Fist, characters like The Flash, when they're like a part of a group, you know, when they're a part of, you know, Heroes for Hire, Justice League, or what have you, and their role in that group is the comic relief character, and they're funny and charming and like witty, and then when you take them out of that story and make them the main character, suddenly they're like weird, gritty, watered down versions of themselves, and
nope, I don't buy it.
That sucks. And that's another symptom of like the protagonist has to be this like bland, shitty nothing. Like,
oh man, and especially comparing like the Flash in anything with the Justice League, comparing him to like, I watched a lot of the Flash TV show. Man, he's in like an ensemble cast. He has a lot of friends and like a group that he's working with, but because he's the main one, he's like a lot more angsty, and it's really annoying.
It's like, that's not what we like about this character.
Not at all.
But like, I digress a little bit, but also that's like something to consider when like, if you are gonna do a spin-off with a character, like, I don't know,
don't change them.
Yeah, keep intact what makes that character good.
Yes.
Characters don't have to be shitty and bland just because they're the protagonist.
Looking at you, Cape Comics, and also most anime.
And just like a lot of shit.
Just like everything.
Just like, oh goodness. But yeah. Jeff, do you want to read this thought from Octopus?
Right, there was a thought from Octopus with 3 S's. My thoughts on making side characters. Make a good meal. Your main character is a plate of already exciting flavors, but your sides can empathize them. A sad character can bring out the caring side of your main character, like salt can bring out the sweetness of a dish. Complementing stuff. Sometimes it's more about balance. Put lemon over fish to make it less salty and more fresh. Both are nice, but together they are amazing. Some characters, although the same ingredient, can act differently depending on the context. Chicken, in the right recipe, can be sweet or savory, etc. I don't know if I want to give my thoughts or I just want to think about food. TBH, but yeah. Too long didn't read. Go buy some Jamie Oliver books, I guess. Asterisk, depending on context, I meant more as a group of people / side characters, like how you can act differently in different groups of friends.
Yep, that's a good analogy.
Yeah.
I think that's a
Yep.
fun analogy.
That's a good way to put it.
This is also a terrible time to have this kind of analogy because I have not eaten lunch yet.
Right before lunch for, I
hungry.
think, all of us.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is something I think about a lot, in that like thin line between inconsistent characterization and well-developed characters. Like
Mhm.
I think a character acting differently with different characters is, as long as it's still true to that character, can make them seem more well-rounded and more like a real person. But I think I don't really know how to describe it, but you know how writers will write a character and it's like, that's not how that character would act, and it's not because we didn't know about this side of that character, it's because like you wrote bad, writer.
That was
Bad
bad
job.
writing. And I mean, like sometimes like I see people having like doing characters and stuff, and it's like, yeah, their characterization is really consistent, but it's really boring because it's like every single person they talk to, without fail, they're like really gruff or like cryptic or like weird, and like they don't have like any other modes. Like they don't have any like variations on their like, they're just like a one-trick pony character, and it's like, okay, I get it, like you really have this like certain type of main character down, but like do they have any other like range of emotions and things that they'll like react to?
So yeah, using your side characters to bring out flavors in your main character is, I think, a really, really good way to put that.
It is quite a delicious idea.
All right. Okay.
You're welcome.
And with that, Amber, I believe you had the webcomic recommendation of the week.
I do have the webcomic recommendation of the week, and this week I am picking a comic that I thought I had already recommended it on this podcast, because when I read it, I was like yelling about it.
I feel like I know what you're talking about. I remember you yelling about this comic, and I meant to look into it. It looks really good.
The comic is called Thicker Than Blood.
Mm-hmm.
It's written by White Fox. Gosh, this comic is gorgeous. Like the most beautiful comic I have ever read. Like I pulled this up onto Pastic, it was just there. For some reason, it doesn't have like way more readers. Like every single page looks like a freaking like Renaissance painting. Like it's just gorgeous. And I got done reading it, and I was like, dang it, I want to get good at drawing. Like it just made me want to draw, because it's like so visually gorgeous. I'm gonna just read the summary for it. So Thicker Than Blood takes place in the 17th century era. It's a fictional world where humans coexist with the demonic creatures of mythology. We follow the story of a young man named Salvador and his extraordinary experiences while serving as the royal soldier of the Five Crowns, though not everything is as it seems in the city of Pendulum. Ellipses. And so it's like really, it's like a really cool story. Like in the first chapter, the like main character is like hunting down like this like scary serial killer that uses like puppets. Mm-hmm. And then like in another chapter there's like vampires. It's just been really, really, really cool. I'm really excited to like learn more about this world. It's got a decent amount of like stuff out. Mm-hmm. It's a pretty cool, beautiful read. I love the main character and his relationship with his wife. They're so cute.
Oh my goodness, this is very pretty.
Right? Yeah, it's so gorgeous.
It's real. Yeah, I remember when you were yelling about this first on Twitter. I was like, I gotta read this, and then just subsequently didn't.
Yes. So
I'll put that on my list.
Yeah, please read Thicker Than Blood by White Fox. It's very good.
Look at it's like an oil painting.
Yeah.
My goodness.
So yeah, read Thicker Than Blood, and yeah, consider your supporting characters and the flavors of them.
Stop.
consider
Oh my goodness.
consider the flavors, dear listeners. But I think that's gonna do it for us this week. That's all we got. Until next time, I've been Brent.
I've been Amber.
And I've been Jeff.
And we do this for free.
I'm gonna go make some food now. I need to freak this
Well,
stomach.
I'm gonna go make some Sonic OCs.